back here again. Look at this awesome patch. This patch is awesome. It's called the drive room, which means like you're imitating like the power source on a spaceship of some kind. Here we got the computer OS. You can hear him occasionally go because the computer is, you know, calculating the size of the galaxy. And there's the engine rumble because it's rumbling and it's got a sub rumble. And then you also got the steam hiss because, as we all know, spaceships run on steam or something. But he's labeled it all here. He's got the zapper. That's in case there's an alien that can zap it. I don't know, I just love this patch. It's crazy. If we tweak the knobs... Well, the sub is getting out of control. It's way too hot in the drive room. Cool it down, boys. Cool it down. Okay, move back again on the lunch break at work. Got a little bit of modular stuff done on the weekend. I'm happy with it. Diving back into the Nord here. We're going to go for a little history lesson. I'll just leave the drive room running in the background while we do that. So, back when I was learning how to use the Nord, I only had two buddies to help me out. One was the manual. That might seem kind of obvious, but it explains a hell of a lot. And I'd had manuals for other synths, but they don't explain how synthesis works in the beginning, which is kind of what a modular manual has to do. So not only does it tell you how this synth works, and it helps you build little experiments, but of course it explains what each of the modules does. So if you didn't know what an LFO was, it's gonna, walk you through it when you get to the LFO group, and on into other functions that you probably have never heard of before. So it's really great. We're going to be seeing this again because I had a little idea in terms of challenging myself to come up with new stuff for the stream. I was working on that community patch number 2 the other day, and the guy had the shaper module, which he was using to change the tonality of the drum synth. And I realized I don't know what the shaper is. I don't use the shaper. I don't even know what category of module it's found in. I bet I could find it here, though. So I think I want to get... Oh, there it is. Shaper. Right there. In audio modifier. So I think my challenge for myself is going to be to go through every module in the manual that I admit I don't know or don't understand, and, spend a stream forcing myself to incorporate at least one of that module into the process. But we won't actually be doing that today. We're going to do something different. So this is the manual. That was one book that I had. I had another book called... It was just called the Nord Modular book, I guess. Advanced Programming Techniques for Modular Synthesizers, edited by James J. Clark. He says edited, but he wrote most of it. And who is James J. Clark? Well, he's just one of the many names I was exposed to when I got a Nord Modular and started going on their forums and reading their posts. So many other people from the synth world. I don't know how to pronounce them all, but that guy Rob Horjak, the guy who invented the Benjolin, he was a Nord Modular programmer. And many other big names. I can't remember them all now, but they were just regular folks from the forums, and now in the world of Eurorack, I see them again. For example, that same James Clark, he built a module called the Cylonic Cycle Box, which was a VCO. So after years of, learning the Nord Modular, he took what he had learned and designed this oscillator. As you can see, it was released back sometime before April 2013, so it's quite old. And then later on, he went on to create it says Cylonics and IntelliGel. Well, Cylonics is him, James Clark, with the Vancouver-based IntelliGel Corporation to make this very strange wave folder called the Shapeshifter. Sorry, I guess technically it says Complex Digital Wavetable Oscillator, but I think a key part of it is that it has an analog wave folder in it. Wave folding be another function I learned about from the Nord Modular manual. So like I said, that's where this guy is today. He's a professor and he designs modules, good for him. But the Nord Modular book exposed me to far more than I could ever take in. Some of the things, all I learned was the name. So like, he starts off with normal subtractive synthesis and sync, frequency modulation and wave shaping. By vector synthesis, I'm starting to get a bit confused. These ones, I'm losing it. Granular, I don't think the Nord Modular is the best for granular, but it can kind of do it, and at least you can learn about it by trying. Then he's going into filter techniques beyond just the standard resonant filter as an oscillator. He's getting into all these other strange areas, the different kinds of noise generation and percussion. At the time, like here we got Car plus Strong. Today in Eurorack you can find multiple physical modeling oscillators that use Car plus Strong, but back in the day, like, this is the first time I'd ever heard of these dudes. And he uses the very short digital delays that the Nord Micromodular offers to build these physical models of strings and woodwinds, and it doesn't sound super accurate, at least in the Nord Modular's version, because of some limitations, but it sure does sound interesting. And what you hear today, again with Car plus Strong, is being done in a ton of ways that you can access in Eurorack. Back in the day, it was more like these dudes came up with this idea, but unless you have a hugely powerful dedicated computer, you're never going to be able to use it. So here he gets into speech synthesis. Again, this is not the strong point of the Micromodular, but it can do it. Into logic, into algorithmic composition. This is a huge influence on me at the time. And cooking noodles, by which he means a noodle is a self-generating patch, a patch that goes on and runs forever and always plays something different. He even gets into faking reverb. There's no digital reverb in the Micromodular, but with the delay effects he can fake it. And into distortion. Another thing I wouldn't say the Nord Micromodular is best at, but it certainly can do stuff. And then finally, I'm going to skip past spatialization, although this was an amazing patch. He made a patch where you could, the Nord Micromodular would send these two ultra-high frequency notes to your speakers, to your left and right speakers in a room in stereo. And then you would stand in the room and wave your hand. And those notes it was producing are too high for you to hear. But when you wave your hand, it produces a third note in response to your waving, which you can hear. And as you move to the left, the pitch gets higher, and move to the right, it gets lower or whatever. So it's almost like virtual reality, but it's being created by the super high frequency tones being emitted from the speakers, played back into the Nord Modular by feedback, and then analyzing how you're interacting with those sounds. A totally crazy thing. You can have to read this yourself. You should be able to find the Nord Modular book online. I don't know. I just downloaded a PDF of it back when I was a Nord Modular guy. I don't know if it's actually for sale or if it ever was. If you need a copy of it, send me a message. I can get it to you. But yeah, let's look at this last section here, emulating classic synths. That's what we're going to do today. And he talks about emulating the DX7. There was an amazing project where at the end they would just load files into a conversion software, and the converter would spit out a a DX7 sounding file that could be loaded into the Nord Modular. But he emulates the Octave Cat, the ARP Odyssey, some Casio synth, and the Halsey Mark 1 and 2, which is a synth he built himself. This is what we're going to do today. I really think you can learn so much if you have a modular system and you try to rebuild the synths you already owned and liked and knew how to use. And even just rebuilding it, recreating it in the modular environment will teach you so much to start with. It will show you how the limitations of your hardware synth can be expanded upon, and it'll also teach you how to modify those pieces of it to develop your own, not develop your own circuits, but develop your own patches in directions you find interesting. So we're going to do this today. I don't know how long this video is going to take. I expect it to take longer than some of the other ones, but I'm gonna get there. I'm Father Maru. I always get there. Yep, we're gonna do this ugly, beautiful little bad boy, the Korg Monotribe. I love the Korg Monotribe. I got it when it first came out. It wasn't my first analog synth, but it was my first modern analog one. And I loved the fact that I could make the basis for an entire track, the bass line and the drums, out of a single box. It's very much like the Rebirth software. It's basically a monophonic synth line, which you can program. The ribbon controller looks crappy, but it's just a way of inputting notes like any other. And if you use a stylus like from a DS, you can easily play the notes on the little keyboard. And of course you can quantize them and fix them as needed. So it's a monophonic bass line and a very, very simple 3-part drum machine. And I've got this is how it looks from the outside. I went and found the manual, and they show a block diagram of it, which is here. Let me resize this bad boy a little. Let you all see all the bits. Let's try that again. Resize you late. There we go. So I'm actually even gonna build it. I have my own method in the Nord Modular editor of where I like to put modules. But today I'm gonna try and build it just the way they did here with the VCO, VCF, VCA, and the out, and just follow this structure just so we can, even people who don't own a Nord Micro Modular should be able to follow along in any in VCV rack or whatever you're using. This is going to be one of the simplest sort of approaches to synthesis you can get. The Korg Volca is the Monotribe is very limited in what it can do, but we're gonna do those things. We're gonna set up those functions, and the bits that don't apply we will just ignore. So let's do it. Let's just look quickly here. I almost thought about simplifying this diagram, but we can ignore certain things for now. The key point is the VCO makes a sound. It is mixed with a noise generator, which only the level is available to you. The VCO is one of 3 waveforms: saw, triangle, square. Notice that square does not have pulse width modulation. So these 2 sounds are mixed. They're also mixed with an audio input, so you can send another sound in there if you want. And then whatever mix you have here arrives at the VCF, which is a low-pass filter. You can adjust the cutoff and the peak. It then hits the VCA, which has an envelope generator, but it's not an ADSR. It's one of 3 types. I think we're going to be using AD today to emulate the left-hand type of simple envelope. And then finally, before it goes to the output, it's mixed with the 3-part drums. So the melody of that VCO is sequenced by the sequencer, and it can also be affected by the LFO, which can also affect the VCF. And the sequencer also programs the drums, as you see here. It tells the drums when to play. All you can really do is control the level of the 3 drums together. So, yeah, again, very limited. And then the 3 drum sounds and the monophonic bass line sound arrive at this mixer and go to the audio out. So I'm going to build pretty much every function of this that I can. Pretty sure I'm going to be skipping the keyboard because, as I said, it's used as a note entry function. It will enter notes in a different way on the Nord Modular, but other than that, pretty much everything is going to be the same. Oh, I guess this is a good point. The octave knob on the Monotribe is actually super useful because you could, when you're recording your sequences, you can sort of jam out on the octave knob at the same time. We won't really be able to implement that function in the Nord Modular, but we could imitate it by the way we program the sequencer. We'll get to that a bit later. So yeah, let's build this mother. I'm going to keep jumping back and forth here. Sorry, Drive Room, it's your time to go. It's been nice listening to you. Thank you, Drive Room. Peace and quiet. Okay, it's been 20 minutes of Frank talking and nothing's even built yet. This is a friggin' travesty. But let's go. So, we need an output. I'm not going to get into the Volca's mono or stereo outputs. I think it sends a monophonic signal, but it can send it to a stereo or a mono output. I'm not going to fight about that today. I can't emulate the weaknesses of the mixer. For example, the final mixer in the Monotribe is a mix of the 3 drums and the bass line. So I'm going to have a third input here, which I won't use, but I don't have a 2-input mixer, so there's no way to do that. So let's cheat a bit. I'll just talk you through everything here. I'm going to save input 1 for the bass line, and input 2 is going to be the drums. Let's go back, and I'm just going to start with the drums. Why? Because it's easy, that's why. Where are you, picture? There you go. Let's close this picture for now. Oh, son of a... Okay, so as we said, 3-part drums is controlled by the sequencer and goes into the output like that. The only thing you can edit on the drums really is their level. There was an update to the Monotribe. I'm not going to get into that too much today, but let's just say there were some other, you could do like rolls and you could do flams in the updated version, but I'm not going to get too into that today. I didn't check in advance, by the way, whether I have the resources in the Nord Modular to definitely recreate all these functions. One way I could do it is, instead of using drum synths that use 12% of the processing power, I could use the percussion oscillator instead, because when I'm imitating it, I don't have to get it exactly right. Even if, for example, the Nord Modular makes a sawtooth wave and the Korg Monotribe makes a sawtooth wave, they're not going to sound the same because one is produced digitally and one is produced analogically. But so, for example, here we got a kick, a snare, and what I hope is a hi-hat. Those are the 3 drum sounds that the Monotribe offers. If I really wanted to get things right, I could record the Monotribe sounds and then try to match the kick, snare, and bass to them, kick, snare, and hi-hat. But for the purposes of this demonstration, we're not going to bother. So there's kick at the top, snare in the middle, and hi-hat at the bottom. Those 3 guys run directly into the mixer, and in the Monotribe, their levels are already set. Like the kick is a certain level in relationship to the hi-hat. You can't do anything about it. But what you can control is this knob here on the Monotribe, the overall volume level. So these drum synths need a sequencer. So on our block diagram, you can see I put 3-part drum sort of over here. And sequencer has been put at the bottom, so let's do that down there. I'm going to give him a clock gen. And I'm also going to give him event sequencer. Seek. I'm actually going to need 2 of these. 3 of these channels are going to represent the 3 drums, and the 4th channel will represent the bass line. So, again, keeping it simple, hook them up here. They're set to 16 steps. Again, the Monotribe in the expanded version did have a 16-step sequencer. The original was 8, but it's kind of neither here nor there. I don't think I got the knobs right on that one. Is sync supposed to go here and here? Because they're not rebooting at the same time. You know what? I'm going to worry about that later. I will fix it, but not right this split second in time. So there's our little... that generates our steps. Of course, in our sequencer, we're also going to need a note sequencer for the bass line. So let's create him as well. And connect him to the same clock and the same reset. In the Monotribe, you can set these to less than 16 steps to make more interesting patterns. We're not really going to worry about that too much today. So let's hook things up. We don't want to have complete silence for this whole patch or everybody will get bored, but I will tell you it's going to be kind of a repetitive sequence to start with on the drums. We got kick, snare, hat, so we're probably going to do something like this. Oops, wrong channel. Drop the tempo a bit. So again, a lot of knobs in real life. I guess we need to look at the Monotribe pick again. Let's just do that quickly. Oh, come on. As you can see here, we got a rhythm knob. That's the volume for the 3 drums. And we also got a tempo knob. We don't really have a way of indicating which of these is going to be tweakable in real life on our emulation, but I can tell you that this tempo knob is one of them. I guess I could use the labels here and say like tempo knob. In order to do that. So I got my 3 channels of drums. I'm not going to spend too much time. There we go. It's a little bit. Okay, great. That's a little bit more bearable. So let's keep setting things up here. We've got the sequencer. Let's build our VCO, VCF, VCA. It won't be too complicated. Let's go back again. So first of all, the VCO has 3 modes: saw, triangle, square. Which one of my oscillators can do that? I'm betting it's good old B. Yep. So I'm just going to do this one time. If I wanted to, in order to maintain accuracy, I could label this module, yeah, that's it, that's his name, no sine, meaning don't use the sine wave because the original one doesn't have that function. I guess I could also say no sine, no PWM, because there is a square wave on the the Monotribe. See this little square here? But there is no pulse width modulation. So what I can do is I can pick between these three choices. I'm going to leave them on square for now. And that's basically our oscillator. I said that we would have a noise function. So up next, we got noise generator. And here's something we haven't seen in Father Moo's broadcast yet, is audio in. But if you look here, the Monotribe does indeed have an audio in and a noise gen to go with the VCO. So we're giving them all three. And we'll add the 3-channel mixer we use so often here. So the output of the oscillator goes into this mixer channel 1. The noise, which I believe on the Monotribe it is white noise and not colored, so I'm leaving it here. And I'll put one channel of our audio in left into the third one. I don't have an audio source to let you hear me test that today, but you have to take my word for it. So we've just built exactly what's here. Again, we've got a VCO with these three settings, a noise generator with a volume amount, and an audio input, which actually doesn't have a volume amount, but that's the way it goes. And those guys are going to run into the VCF. Let's do the next stage. I would like to choose the classic low-pass filter is going to be the most accurate. I know that I'm pretty sure that the Monotribe uses the recreation of the MS-20's filter, which is, I think, a 24 dB filter. If I'm wrong, please write me an angry letter, but I'm going to leave it right there for now. We're going to need these inputs later when we build the LFO, but let's stress about that later. That kind of covers the whole VCF thing. We got to be able to tweak, cut off, and peak. I assure you we can do that with the knobs that are available to us, and there's a cutoff input. There's also key tracking, and we haven't got into that yet. And then we've got the VCA with the three types of EG. As I said, I'm going to use good old boring AD envelope. Notice that my other options here include things that have modulation. But does the Monotribe have a way to modulate the VCA or the envelope generator? No, it doesn't. In fact, it has fixed forms for its envelopes. So luckily, this, even just the default settings, kind of what you see here, is similar to the first setting on the Monotribe. And yeah, so we've created the audio chain here. An oscillator with the option for noise and external sounds, running into a filter, running into a, well, this is actually two functions. In the Nord Modular, VCA and EG are combined into what it calls an envelope. And that's this guy. And he will go into the reserved channel 1 of the mixer to mix with the drums. Here's another function we can see here. The gate on that envelope will be triggered by the 4th channel of our event sequencer here. There's a little note for you. Yeah. Beautiful, ain't it? Let's give him a little bit of noise. Just because we can. And the filter. So we're almost there. We've been doing this for 10 minutes, not counting the Frank talking time, and we're really almost there. Let's go back to the picture. There is the LFO to build. Let's just make sure our sequencer is working first. That will be this guy. So I think I can just put in some notes here. This will sound like something you've seen me do before, but by putting in octaves, which are 24 or 12, we imitate the effect of tweaking the octave knob on the Monotribe itself. These are all just going to play one note in various octaves, but of course they can be others. Plug this into this and dial this up to full. I'll give them some more notes too. Cool. Back to our chart. Now we got to do the LFO. Let's analyze this bad boy. So we haven't talked LFOs too much in the stream. First of all, it has a range. It can be used as fast, slow, or one shot. This is quite interesting because one shot really means like a second version of an EG. Of course, it has rate and intensity knobs, and then it has a target. You can go to the VCO, the VCF, or the VCO and the VCF. I wonder how we're going to build that today. That's an interesting question. I guess we could just do it with the input knobs. Yeah, that's probably the easiest way. So let's see, will this guy... No, I may need the biggest and best LFO here in order to emulate the functions. So the LFO shapes. Is this not even showing the LFO shapes? That's odd. Well, let's go back to our picture of a monotribe. Right, it's right here. So here's the waves for the VCO, saw, triangle, square. And here's the wave for the LFO, saw, triangle, square. And as we said, fast, slow, one shot. I could definitely create the one shot with another envelope here, but I think we're just going to skip that for now. Let's just focus on the fact that it has these three waves, saw, triangle, and square. How about in my model, I've got, there's a triangle, I got two kinds of saw, and I got a square. I've usually been a fan of triangles, so I think I'm gonna stick with that one for now. And we also said it can be assigned to VCO and VCF, or just VCF. So let's do that now. And then all I have to do is turn up the knobs on this one or this one to affect it. If I want the LFO to affect the oscillator pitch, this will make it all crazy, but if I turn up the speed quite a bit, and then I turn this down a lot, I get like a vibrato. Right? So LFO modulating VCO, it can also modulate the filter, and it can do both. Right now it's doing both. And now it's doing just the filter. A high speed isn't quite as useful here, but if we drag it down, it's pretty usable. Impressively, for this LFO, we even have high, low, and sub. It has speed knobs as well, so the speed knob there corresponds to this range knob, so I don't really need to emulate it. Intensity is being emulated by these amount input knobs. In fact, the intensity of the oscillator is at 0. And the rate is what I was messing with before, which is the speed of the LFO right here, big knob. And the target we discussed as well. Finally, the sequencer will let you sync up the LFO's output, and you don't see it on the diagram right now, but in the upgraded version of the Monotribe, you could send a clocked random LFO, which was in sync with the sequencer, or you could do that trick you've seen in my stream so many times. yeah, I think we're done. We've done every function. We have a VCO that allows you to mix in noise and audio. We have a VCF with cutoff and peak. We have an envelope generator with a very limited amount of shapes. We got 3 drums and their level. We've got a sequencer for controlling the drums and the pattern of the VCO. And we got an LFO to modulate it all in real time. It might have been, if I had my Monotribe here, it might be nice to set up the same patch on it to set its square tooth as the wave. Let's try it. Here's saw. And to mix in a bit of noise and to get the drums in a similar pattern and see if we can make them sound like each other. I don't really have it in front of me right now. In fact, mine is currently out of order, but it's an interesting experiment at least. And yeah, we're coming to the end. We used 67% of the power. I would say that's not a heck of a lot. Again, what will be my final steps here? I might go in and figure out a way to... I bet I can do it quickly. If instead of LFO-A, you wanted to use this in one-shot mode, you could create another simple attack decay envelope, and then you just have to sort of decide which one you're going to use. If you were using these functions, you shouldn't use these functions or whatever. And this would be sent to, I think, this is one of the options, and this would be one of the other options. I can't plug 2 outputs into one input. I don't think I can anyway. I wonder. No, I can't. So, yeah, you'd have to reconfigure the patch cables here, but it could be done, is the point. And then this gate would have to be... Ooh, I don't know how you'd sync that up. You'd probably have to trigger it either every beat here, or you could maybe build a clock divider to get it exactly in time. But yeah, it'd be fun to at least try to program the same patch on your emulation and on your real version. So that's this. If you are messing around with your own system, whatever that is, I would love to see it if people, emulated other hardware synths and sent them in to me. I should be putting this in my streaming patch archive. I'm not in the right place. Look at all those beautiful patches. We're now up to 26. The Google link is up in the YouTube page as well. So yeah, fake Monotribe. Let's save him in the synth. If I have time someday, and especially if I get the Monotribe fixed, I will have a sort of shootout. I'll program something on the hardware one and then program the same thing on this, and we can compare their sounds. But this will probably do the job for today. So yeah, thanks for coming to church. Hope you had a good time. See what you can come up with on your own. If anybody wants the Nord Modular book, reach out to me. I'm sure you can learn a ton, even if you're using VCF or VCV rack, or if you're using some other program like Reactor. There's still a ton of information here that you will find fascinating, I guarantee. A lot of smarter people than me have read this book and done a lot of smarter things than I've ever done with it. So if you need it, let me know. I'll hook you up. It's Father Moo. Thank you.